Hello art students. I'm going to talk to you about wood burning. So one thing we're struggling with a little bit this year is finding wood scraps because shop hasn't been working as much with distance. So if you have any nice wood scraps, you can bring some in. I'll bring in as many as I can. One thing you want to look for, you want a nice smooth piece of wood. Like the back of this piece is actually really rough. That would be really hard to wood burn unless you sanded it a lot. So I'm gonna start with taking some sandpaper, and we have sandpaper in the classroom, and getting this even smoother. How long you have to sand is going to depend on the piece of wood that you have. This piece was pretty smooth already, but the smoother it is, the better that your wood burner is going to work. Now, if you're actually going to do a finished wood burning, you're going to want to plan out your design, and I would probably sketch it on here first with a pencil. Just like we've been talking about with scratch art and linoleum, if you have art or an image that you really like, you can take a copy of that image and put graphite on the back and set it down on the piece of wood that you're working with and trace it and do this image transfer. Sorry, my dog is coming down to visit while I do my video here. It's a little bit light on the wood, but I can see it really well. So you could do an image transfer if you need to. With the wood burning, I know I keep telling you this guideline or this rule, but just like with scratch art and just like with linoleum, I would try to wood burn like 50% of it. So like 50% natural wood, 50% burnt. Like we talked about here, you know, you don't just want to do an outline. It doesn't look as interesting as if you work it more and get that 50-50 and get some really cool textures in there. So I would do that too with wood burning. Another thing with wood burning is texture. If you can make like the pine needles on trees or the bark on the trunk of the tree or fur or feathers, texture looks great with wood burning too. Now, before you actually wood burn your final design, you're gonna wanna practice a little bit. The wood burner, once it's plugged in, ours have a dial, some don't. I've got it turned most of the way up because I'd like it to burn quickly. Anything beyond, you know, this handle right here, any of this metal is very hot. So you definitely don't want to touch anything beyond there. Most people don't grab it intentionally, but sometimes people will set it like on the edge of the table or something, and then they bump it and it falls and hits their arm or something. So it's really important to have it, you know, securely placed on the table, not on the edge, not where anyone's gonna bump it. And then you wanna make sure the tip's not touching anything, right? Because if I set it and leave it like that, pretty soon it's gonna start smoking and we'll have an issue. If you set it on your binder, it's gonna melt your binder. So watch where you place the wood burner when you're not using it for safety. I would at first just do some practice with the wood burner and, sorry, I'm trying to find the best angle here. This tip, it's kind of a chisel tip. So if I use it sideways, it's gonna make some pretty fine lines. And if I move quickly, the lines will be thinner and lighter. If I move slowly, the lines will be darker and thicker, like that. So you can see where I moved quickly and now where I'm moving slowly. With the wood burner, so like when you're using a pencil, if you want it darker, you press harder. With the wood burner, you don't want to do that because when this metal's really hot, if I push hard on it, I'm gonna snap the tip. So probably the most important thing I can tell you about using a wood burner is to get something darker, just go slower, don't press harder. So if I work this sideways and go fast, I get kind of a light shaded burn. So you can see you can shade stuff with it. But if I go slower, I'm not pushing any harder. Sorry, I kind of hit a wood grain there. Let me go to a different spot. Wood grain will mess with you a little bit. You just kind of have to work with it. So I'm just going slower. I did the same thing I did here, there, but I just went slower. Don't push hard. It's really hard. It's kind of like a mind trick at first to not push hard, but you really can't push hard, otherwise you'll break all the wood burners and then we'll be done wood burning. So I'm just going slower. So I would just practice different ways to make marks and different textures that you could make before you actually do a final design. One thing I won't tolerate in the classroom is some people after a while are like, oh cool, I'm just gonna burn a hole in the board, and they'll sit there and hold it and hold it and hold it and hold it and try to burn a big hole in the board. We can't be doing that in the classroom because there's just too much smoke and there's other students, you know, trying to work. Because if you use it correctly, it creates pretty minimal smoke, just a little bit of smell. But if you're trying to burn holes in the board, that becomes an issue, and then you'll be done wood burning. So once you get to a design, you want to think about that 50-50, you want to think about texture, but at first I would just try it out. Remember all the safety things about not touching the hot part, and then the main thing, when you're not using it, it needs to be placed safely so that someone's not going to knock it off the table and burn themselves or melt a hole in something. So this is wood burning.